eyes may lose their dreams. It hopes for glances so wanting in lust, as though you held the world in trust. It hopes for glances so full of desire, as if the earth should be born of fire. It hopes for glances of such might to make spring of a winter's night, and ever, ever, through your day, shine love's most beautiful rose bouquet. This is 5 songs, Opus 38, number 1, Eric Korngold. Now we're going to get to a very meaty work written by the great Felix Mendelssohn in 1843. Mendelssohn had 2 wonderful quotes I love. He said, "Life and art are not 2 different things." And then speaking about the power of music, he said, "Though everything else may appear shallow and repulsive, even the smallest task in music is so absorbing and carries us so far away from town, country, earth, and all worldly things that it is truly a blessed gift of God." Mendelssohn grew up, he was the grandson, of course, of Moses Mendelssohn, the wonderful Jewish philosopher who had come out of the ghetto of Dessau, a hunchback even, and by the power of his intellect was able to work into society, got to be friends with Lessing, the great playwright, who sort of wrote this play, Die Juden, the Jew, the first play that basically said Jews could be real people, and he pointed to Moses Mendelssohn saying, he is the definitive answer to this. They are intellectual power. He He even had meetings with Frederick the Great. But Mendelssohn wrote a wonderful German translation of the Bible for the Jews to be able to read there, and really helped to try to get them to come out of the ghetto to assimilate into the society there in Germany. They did very well. So Moses had a son, of course, named Abraham. And Abraham used to describe himself as the human sandwich. He said, "For many years I was the son of my father, and then I became the father of my son." But Abraham followed in his father's footsteps, did very well as a banker in the early part of the 19th century in Berlin. And they had a wonderful home that they set up there for the children. Felix had an older sister, Fanny, who's a phenomenal composer, who I will play in my Women Composers. She did not get the opportunity that Felix got. But Felix was a remarkable child prodigy. In fact, he played for Goethe, the great poet, who had also heard young Mozart, who's often considered the greatest prodigy. And Goethe said, what this young boy already accomplishes bears the same relation to the Mozart of that time that the cultivated talk of a grown-up person bears to the prattle of a child. So this Mendelssohn was something really great, and his octet that he wrote when he was 16 is widely considered one of the greatest works by somebody that young. But his family still wasn't sure he should be a musician. They thought maybe it would be better to follow as a banker, make some money. In fact, his uncle Jacob said, "A professional musician? I can't get that into my head. It's neither a career, nor a life, nor a goal. One is no further advanced at the end than one was at the beginning. In fact, one is generally better off at the beginning," which is vaguely true. Now, of course, he grew up Jewish, but when he was 7 years old in 1816, the family converted to Protestantism and Lutheranism, and I believe it was Protestantism. Fanny and Felix were both converted, and then the father and mother did as well. In 1816, there was a votum that came from the Prussian Ministry of Finance that said the following: "It would be desirable not to have any Jews at all in the country. We must tolerate those we already have, but at the same time, we must try constantly to render them as inoffensive as possible. The conversion of Jews to the Christian religion must be facilitated, and all civil rights must be linked to their conversion. As long as a Jew remains Jewish, he cannot obtain a position in the state." So with that knowledge, it sort of makes sense. He knew he wanted to sort of get ahead as a composer. The father knew that. He converted them. And he wanted them to take the name Bartholdy, which the uncle had taken. But Mendelssohn didn't want to do that. He wanted to honor his grandfather, Mendelssohn. So oftentimes it was Mendelssohn Bartholdy, but sometimes he just put it in when he published music just as Mendelssohn. And this angered the father while he was alive. In fact, Abraham said, "You must change your name. There can no more be a Christian Mendelssohn than there can be a Jewish Confucius." So he really struggled with that conversion, and I think we're going to hear something in the music, at least I hear in the third movement of this piece, that's sort of in a microcosm. It begins with this chorale, which actually sounds very much like Bach. Mendelssohn was one of the people who really helped rediscover Bach, who had sort of been forgotten. But Mendelssohn found the St. Matthew Passion in 1829, conducted it. It led to this great revival of Bach. So he loved Bach, and in the beginning of that third movement, the piano's playing these chords that are actually very much like the St. John Passion. But then the cello comes in, and to me it sounds much more like a liturgical cantatorial chant, has the darker sound. And it's sort of they vibe back and forth until at the end, the pianist then takes over that cantatorial chant. So in some ways it seems to win out at the end, something to listen for in that beautiful third movement. Ultimately, Mendelssohn becomes one of the greatest composers, although he dies when he's only 38 years old. But when he dies, he is probably considered second to Beethoven as a composer. There are huge celebrations of his death, mourning for him. But over the span of the 19th century, his stature goes down, and largely a result of a book that came out after he died called The Jews in Music, which was published anonymously, but was later discovered to be written by Richard Wagner, the opera composer. And Wagner's basic treatise was that Mendelssohn can write really showy music, but there's so many notes, and he just covers up the fact that there's nothing there. Now, there are a lot of notes, especially in the piano part. Somebody called it once fly poop on paper because of the 16th notes that you have. It's all black notes. But to say that there's no substance here is just missing the point. And of course, Wagner wrote ridiculously long operas. As Rossini once said about Wagner, there are some beautiful moments and some really terrible hours. But Wagner wrote specifically in that about Mendelssohn. He said, "Mendelssohn has shown us that a Jew may possess the greatest abundance of talents, the finest and most diverse education, the most elevated, delicately perceptive sense of honor, yet in spite of all these advantages, never once be able to summon the profound rending of heart and soul that we expect from music. For Mendelssohn, it was never about the what, but rather merely the how of music. As a result of his efforts at expressing an unclear, almost trivial content in as interesting and dazzling a manner as possible, the shapelessness and chaotic arbitrariness of our music style has been, if not induced, then at least raised to the highest level. And that's ridiculous commentary. But what happens is that that sort of takes on, and then over the span of the century, Mendelssohn sort of gets reduced to kind of a third-rate composer. And if you read dictionaries about composers at the turn of the 20th century, Mendelssohn's biography is really small. He's not considered great. And of course, when Hitler rises to power, they outlaw all of the music of Mendelssohn. They take down his statue in front of the Leipzig Conservatory that he founded, and there was no Mendelssohn for many years. Now, after the war, we've sort of come back and rediscovered Mendelssohn, of course, his violin concerto, but his wonderful trios, his symphonies, and all of that. And there's a wonderful book that was written just to close right after the war by the Czech author Jiří Weil, and it's called Mendelssohn on the Roof. It's historical fiction, but in the book, the SS officers are told to go to the roof of the Prague Opera House and take down the statue of Mendelssohn that's up there. But when they get up there, there's statues of all the great composers up there, but they're kind of worn out, and the names aren't on any of the statues, so they don't know which one to take down. They decide to take the one with the biggest nose, who happens to be Wagner. And so, yay, we got him back. So it's a fun book if you want to read. So this is an amazing work written in 1843 for his brother Paul, who was a wonderful cellist. It's in 4 movements. You'll hear that beautiful 3rd movement with the chorale, and that goes right into this really sprightly, fantastic 4th movement. Here's Mendelssohn's Cello Sonata in D major.
Thank you, and one more time, Dan Weiser. Wow, what playing this is, unbelievable, unbelievable. I have an easy job for this piece, listen, it is our greatest privilege to be here. In fact, let me just leave the cello over there so I don't, something bad doesn't happen. You know, Dan Weiser mentioned in the beginning that we are going to play a piece that you normally don't hear with cello and piano. This is the Elgar Cello Concerto, third and fourth movement. The reason I really pushed for that is because when we speak about the last composer we're going to play, Samuel Coleridge Taylor, we often talk about his connection musically and even geographically with Elgar, because when it comes to Samuel Coleridge Taylor, Elgar was his biggest supporter. But we rarely get to hear these composers back to back. Elgar's Cello Concerto is Elgar's final work, final major work, in fact, written in 1918, after the First World War. The composer was, mildly put it, he was disillusioned with the world that they lived in at the time. Obviously, the fall of the British Empire, or the destruction that had happened during the First World War. And in fact, that concerto is not, I don't want to say it's not a happy piece, but it is a special piece for anybody actually who plays it and hears it, because it does carry something more with it. I don't want to say it is a swan song of one of the greatest composers ever to have lived, but Elgar did live through certain tumultuous times in his life while writing it. In fact, his wife had passed away while he was writing the concerto, and you'll hear in the third movement, which we're going to play the third and fourth. We start with the third, which is a slow movement. You may not know that, but there is a quotation from Elgar's wife's favorite song there that he incorporated it. And at the end of the piece, after virtuosic last movement, this theme comes again ever so hauntingly. In a way, it's a journey that we cannot experience fully without the orchestra. However, we have the Daniel Weiser Philharmonic Orchestra with us, and I can assure you the result is as great as you would be hearing this piece with a full orchestra. So again, the reason for me, especially to play Elgar's Concerto together with Samuel Coleridge Taylor's Ballade, is that I wanted to juxtapose these two composers that lived around the same time. Of course, Samuel Coleridge Taylor died earlier, and he was much younger than Elgar. But Elgar, again, one of the most prominent composers of the late 19th century and very early 20th century, sort of forgotten musical language that is actually never going to get out of fashion. Okay, so this is Elgar's Concerto, third and fourth movement.
Lachezar Kostov. Amazing playing. I'll just do a short one. Yeah, yeah. So that's just a beautiful piece. It's a fun orchestra part. One nice quote. I love to collect quotes, as you know. Elgar said, "My idea is that there is music in the air, music all around us. The world is full of it, and you simply take as much as you require." And he also once said, "It is curious to be treated by the old-fashioned people as a criminal just because my thoughts and ways are beyond them." And I'm going to let Lachezar talk about Samuel Coleridge just a little bit. This is just a fascinating composer. He came from a mixed race. His father, who he actually never met, was actually also mixed race. He had come from Sierra Leone, a doctor, and had come to study, do some work in England, had met his mother. His mother got pregnant without letting him, and the father went back to Africa. He never knew that she was pregnant. So she ended up raising this child with her own family. Her father happened to be a very good amateur violinist, and he's the one who taught Coleridge Taylor how to play the violin at first, and he got into the Royal Conservatoire of Music and made a kind of a sensation for himself in England, got picked up by Elgar, who really wanted to support him. He ended up coming to the United States a lot. He loved Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The Song of Hiawatha he set to music, and he actually named his child Hiawatha. He ended up coming several times to America. In fact, he actually had a meeting with Theodore Roosevelt in the White House in 1904, which is very early for any mixed African to come there. He unfortunately would die very young at the age of 37. On his tombstone, it actually reads, "Too young to die, his great simplicity, his happy courage in an alien world, his gentleness made all that knew him love him."
Yeah, that's that tragic story of Samuel Coleridge Taylor, perhaps the best, least known composer you ever hear. To add to what Dan said, Samuel Coleridge Taylor was an exceptional violinist. In fact, he wrote a violin concerto that is played nowadays. And he wrote this ballad towards the end of his life, in 1907, in fact. It is, I often describe it, and by the way, I am the only cellist who plays this, so if you hear it anywhere else, it's not, you know, sorry. And I knew that Daniel had played the ballad before because there's a video on YouTube of him playing with a violinist. So I told him, hey, we have to do this piece. But there's something about, I tell folks, when you hear this piece, while you're listening to it, you will think that you have heard it, but in fact you haven't, because I'm almost sure that you haven't heard it. But there's something about the compositional language of Samuel Coleridge Taylor that is universal yet new for the time. And I don't know if it's in conjunction with his lush harmonies or the beautiful soaring melodies that very few composers can write. In fact, to me personally, he rivals the likes of Mozart, Dvorak, and Mendelssohn, in fact, or even Verdi, for the exceptional qualities of his melodies. Again, Elgar, once he found out who Samuel Coleridge Taylor was, proclaimed that Samuel Coleridge Taylor would be the future of British music. And if Samuel Coleridge Taylor hadn't died that young, who knows? I think the sky would have been the limit with this exceptionally talented composer. Again, this is an arrangement from a violin and piano piece to a cello and piano, which I dare say, it's better.
Thank you to Lachezar. Thank you to everybody here. Thanks for being in the audience. Thank you in the live stream. Again, if you're here in the audience and want to get on our email list for AmiciMusic, they are up here. Or if you're at home, check out AmiciMusic.org. Some wonderful concerts coming up. And Lachezar will always be around. And did you want to say something, Aviva? Okay, come on in.
Thank you to our amazing musicians. This was quite a concert. We welcome everyone back next month for Seth Keibel, and we have a great series this year of 6 in-person concerts. So thank you to everybody for coming in person and on Zoom. And I also want to mention that we are very thankful to the Peggy and Yale Gordon Trust Fund for enabling these concerts. Have a wonderful day.
That's actually a good program. It's a perfect thing.